Well, happy Shabbat to one and all. My pleasure to be with you. We have Lisa here standing in for our buddy Larry, who's still down with a couple of bad hips, and Kirk. Hello, lady and gentlemen.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. I got an email today from Fred that said that there were a number of people that claimed to be part of the covenant who are not just studying a book called Urantia, but are encouraging others to trust it and have worked into that their mantra as a breakout group to distrust my translations. Now, I don't have any problem with somebody distrusting my translations. The only thing I would ask, if you're going to do so, create better ones. That's not a challenge from of any kind. I'm delighted if you create better ones. It's not that this is not a win-lose proposition. It's win-win if you can create a better one. So I would encourage everyone to attempt to do so. The rewards are tremendous. Now, even if you don't create a better one, but you create your own, you're going to gain in the process. So, because I'm told that there are covenant members, I want to begin by sharing something that I shared with a gentleman that may or may not be listening to this show tonight. I may listen to it in the archives. He wrote me an email about a week or so ago and had a number of questions about the nature of Yahowah and where to learn about him. And, he came to the conclusion, as so many do, that, if I have to learn Hebrew, I'll learn Hebrew. But, how do I go about this? And what I told him is you don't need to learn Hebrew. There are too many wonderful tools that enable you to figure out what God had to say. You do have to use those tools, and you do have to look at the Hebrew text if you want to understand what God has to say. But, we have provided a lot of material, and a whole lot of books that cover an enormous amount of the Torah and the prophets. And all of them are exposed for anybody to challenge them and investigate those translations for themselves. I know it's something, Kirk, you've done a lot of.
Oh, yes.
You've done it two ways. You've looked at my translations initially and said, this seems right, but it's the antithesis of anything I've ever heard before. So let's look up the words and see if it's accurate. That's where you started, right?
From multiple sources, and from every angle I could think of. And I just wanted to prove that I'm not being led astray. And as far as back as you can go, that's what you always said.
Yeah, because we have to be careful. Just because it sounds, because everything God says and that we reveal in these books is reasonable. It's rational. It's exactly as you would expect it to be. It's consistent. It presents God exactly as you would want him to be. And so there's always this tendency for us to accept those things, which is, they say, tickle our ears, which is what we want to hear. And so you have to be really careful in that regard. And to determine whether or not it is an accurate rendering of what God said. And really, I think there are two issues here. And then I want to get to the point of this letter that I wanted to raise and then to address Urantia from that perspective. There are two issues. How do you go about determining whether or not a text has been inspired by God? I mean, there's a lot of texts that claim to be. The Quran claims to be. The Zohar claims to be. Urantia claims to be inspired by spiritual beings. The Christian New Testament claims to be. And yet it's the antithesis of the Torah and prophets. And in addition to that, you've got the Quran, which claims to be. There are a lot of books that claim to be inspired by God. So first thing you have to do is to determine whether or not the text is inspired by God. Trust the text. Can you verify its authenticity? Now, God gave us a way to do that, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. Check the prophecy.
You find it in the Torah,
prophecy is true.
Right.
holds up.
Now, you want to be really careful here. You don't want to use circular reasoning and say, well, in the Torah there are two tests in Yahweh's voice. Actually, they're in Moshe's voice, but speaking on behalf of Yahweh, to determine whether or not Yahweh, the Creator God of the universe, inspired the text. Now, to avoid circular reasoning, the reason that we know that Yahweh inspired the Torah begins with the fact that the creation account is precisely accurate. It did take 6 24-hour days from the perspective of the creator at creation to create the universe. And the cosmic background radiation that shows that it's 14 billion years looking back from our perspective is exactly 6 24-hour days from the perspective of the creator. I mean, the details in the story are all precisely accurate as to when life began, when the sky became translucent and the sun and the moon became visible. The symbolism is for human history is all there, particularly on the fourth day, and what was going to happen as the timing of the Moed and the greater light would become visible to us, which happened in 33 CE, 4000 Yah, the 4th century of human existence. And then, you go through the story of Noah, and every detail of that story is precisely accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at the testimony of Yahweh and the fact that it's grounded in history and that it's the only comprehensive historical text of that place and those people, and everything that it says has been proven by the archaeologist Spade. Every bit of it. And
I wonder if the book of Urantia, who was written by a man who worked at a sanatorium and worked for, one of the most disgusting psychiatrists in the world, Freud. I wonder, and who went to Moody Bible College and rejected the Sabbath and thought Ellen G. White was just fantastic. I wonder if he's accurate in anything that he says.
Oh, yeah, Seventh-day Adventism. It permeates it, and Seventh-day Adventism. I probably did 30 hours of programming, going through every one of their belief statements and tearing it to ribbons from the perspective of God. Anyway, and then we have prophecy. Now, in the book of Urantia, because it was written published 1955, written sometime between 1925 and 1955. All of the prophecy is in it are predictions yet unfulfilled. 100% of the prophecy in the Torah and prophets has either been fulfilled precisely as it was laid out, or is on the cusp of being fulfilled, and from any perspective looks inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
Yahweh proved that he inspired the Torah, and in the Torah he gives us a test. In fact, he presents it twice in the book of Devarim, how we can go about determining whether or not a revelation came from him. So that's the first test. Now, the second, of course, is the first task is to find out which test can be trusted, and therefore which test cannot be trusted. There is no accurate prophecy in the Quran. There's no accurate prophecy. In fact, there's one inaccurate prophecy, and no accurate prophecies in Paul's writings. And so if you were to recognize that this book claims to be a blend between St. Paul, in their own words, and philosophy, it's already rubbish. God calls Paul the plague of death.
This guy, and so Sadler, hated the Shabbat. After he left the Seventh-day Adventist, he had his meetings on Sunday.
Well, of course.
And was also
how enlightened of him.
Yeah, he also had a very high interest in eugenics. How could anyone believe anything from this man's lying face?
Right. Yeah. Oh, and he claims that the religion is a blend of all religions, and that all religions, you read their own writing, their homepage, that those that Urantia itself is a blend of many religions, and that no religion can claim to be the one true religion, but that all religions contribute to our knowledge. Well,
yeah, that's believable.
I think I've written the most comprehensive book ever compiled on the Quran. I did so by putting it in the context of Muhammad's life by using the chronological hadith. There isn't anything in that book that has any value whatsoever. It doesn't contribute to knowing God. It contributes to knowing Satan. To make a statement like that, you have to be part of those that are deceiving. You know, if you read Paul's letters, Paul does not contribute to our knowledge of God. He contributes to our understanding of how Satan operates. He even admits that he's demon-possessed. That's why he's the plague of death. When I read this from, I think it was Fred that sent it to me, and said that there was a crossover also amongst these individuals with the study of a lunar Shabbat. Well, let's go to the book of Enoch, right?
Okay, go back to you, yeah.
Yeah, a lunar Shabbat. Now, I would like you to tell me, once where Yahweh tells us that there is a lunar Shabbat, and I would like you to tell me how 7 divides into 29.5. Please.
Can't do it.
Or how you can believe a guy that wrote a book, claimed he got the information from a visitor from another planet, and how that is in any way credible.
Yeah. Is Urantia a Hebrew word?
No.
I don't even know the word.
No. It's a Greek word. Greek.
It's a Greek word, right. So they claim that that's actually the name of the planet Earth.
Ah. This is a sci-fi writer, right?
Yeah, they worked that out over their Sunday team meeting.
To a name for this place is Eretz, and it's a word, not a name.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't name the planet.
No.
Now, you think and this is the thing that's just so preposterous to me. The Torah does a marvelous job of, in fact, it's the only credible story of creation, precisely accurate in every detail. Why would you need a book that would give you a story of creation when God gave you a story of creation?
Yeah, and he told you it was complete and perfect in every way.
Because
he gave you everything you need to know.
Hate Torah.
Yeah,
that's
and
why.
Human history. You know, they claim right on their homepage that every human is part of God's family. Well, that's not what God says. He says exactly the opposite. He tells us that you're not my children. I've disowned you because you broke the terms and conditions of the covenant. When Yahweh was talking with Abraham, and Abraham said, you know, what about Ishmael? Can he be part of the covenant? The only family God has.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Won't even
wait,
discuss it
the
with
guy
you.
that wrote Urantia went to Moody Bible College.
Oh,
it's got to be worth something, right, Craig?
Yeah, we're up there with Moody Jeff.
You know what?
Oh yeah.
I'm at this point where I really believe people actually have a hatred, a strong hatred for Torah.
Yeah,
why
they do.
is this not good enough?
Why is this part of the covenant?
It.
Yeah. Now I'm going to take it back to the letter that this gentleman wrote me, and he, you know, he wanted to know Yahweh, and I gave him, you know, here's the books you should read, and he tried the old Kirk technique. I want to go print them all off, and you kill about 18 of today's printers. And you know, I told him that they're also available at Claritors. And they're actually a much better value at Claritors than they are if you try to print them yourself.
They really are.
You can buy them at a fraction of the cost of Claritors that you can print them. And of course, they're free.
Before you begin, can I throw in one little thing?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to throw you off kilter here, but for a couple of weeks I've been revisiting old studies of the Exodus, and that's a fantastic tale with 10 plagues and so forth. If you could find evidence that the Egyptians wrote exactly the same thing verbatim, and it confirms the Torah, if you found things in the Hermitage that were just sitting around where they talk about the invading armies and what happened after the slaves left, and on and on and on, and hundreds of pages of research, and you could prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that all these things are confirmed all over the place. That, I mean, to me, that was overwhelming. On the point of this is not far-fetched. All you got to do is get your timeline straight, because there's a lot of fake history in Egypt.
Oh yeah, that's why that book that David Roll wrote. It's About Time. You know, spectacular in terms of showing affirmations of the Exodus and the time of Israelites in Egypt and Goshen. You know, the evidence.
I haven't even referred to his book. I can
overwhelming
do pages on this stuff. You know, just on and on and on.
Yeah, and
they still call in Egypt the dam of Yosef. Are you kidding me?
Of course.
They still call it that today.
Of course. They have Hebrew writing.
No, it never happened.
That dates back to Yosef. They have the agrarian reform. There's evidence for it everywhere with all the levies that were put in at the time of Yosef. That all of the storage buildings that were grain storage buildings for the 10 years or 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine, those grain buildings not only have been found, they date to the time of Yosef. Every detail of the story.
They found his house. What's not to
They found his house. Yeah, they found his house. Yeah. So this was the point that I wanted to make. And by the way, Kirk, while I would be interested in that because I do find it fascinating, the intersection between history and Yahweh's teaching, at one time in my life, the intersection of those two things, the affirmation of Yahweh's testimony through his historical and archaeological research, was very meaningful to me. It was just another block in this great edifice of understanding. And with each affirmation, my trust grew. I'm not there anymore. And we may have
really, I'm not either. I've heard you say that several times. It's just, it's more for everybody else to realize that, you know, this is not just out of the blue. This is very provable if you want to go there.
Right. And that's why we ought to cover it. It doesn't mean much to me now, other than I'll share one way it does mean something to me. But it's important for others, for the point that I want to make here, which is that this gentleman, after buying all the books from Clariters, asked a question. He said, is there a sensation that I will feel when I am part of, when I belong to Yahweh, was his wording, I think. Is there a sensation that I will feel?
About happy.
Well, I told him no. No, I told him no. And I didn't take the road of, you know, sensations and feelings are the realm of religion and how man is misled. I took an entirely different tack. Because he wanted to say, or is it just, you know, going to be a matter of facts? And this is the thing that I love so much about Dode, and why the study of history vis-a-vis the Torah one time would have mattered to me, no longer does. There is nothing that surpasses knowing and understanding. Nothing. I don't believe that God exists. I know him.
Yeah.
I don't wonder if I'm part of the covenant. I know. I don't question my salvation. It isn't even something that ever crosses my mind. Yahweh's testimony, the evidence he provides, when thoughtfully considered, proves his existence, reveals his nature, character, and purpose, and elucidates the exact path that God has provided that we need to pursue and accept, respond to, and act upon to become part of his family and to receive the benefits of being part of his family. Those that have taken the time to listen to what he has to say, thoughtfully consider it, and accept those terms and conditions, to meet him as he has outlined, know him, know that they're part of his family. There is nothing that surpasses that level of understanding, the confidence that it exudes. It is the thing about Dode that is so spectacular. You read Dode's Psalms, he doesn't believe in God. There's no place where Dode had a private meeting with God where, they broke bread and had a sip of wine. But Dode never once speaks of faith. He never once questions his relationship with God. It is a matter of conviction. Yeah. And the conviction is based upon evidence and reason. So what my response to this gentleman was, not only is there nothing beyond evidence and reason and the conviction that it provides, there is nothing better. There is nothing better. And once you have that knowledge and understanding and you're part of the covenant family, emotions, feelings are a natural response to being part of a relationship. But I want to bring it back now to Urantia. If you're pursuing and promoting a book that's this obviously false, if you're pursuing and promoting a lunar Shabbat, if you are studying and promoting the Book of Enoch, if you are of the belief that Paul was inspired by God, if any of those things are true, you aren't part of the covenant family. You don't know Yahowah and understand his plan sufficiently to be grounded in the Torah. You aren't part of his family. Don't pretend to be.
Well, then you'd be in violation of the Exodus, about 27, when he says, don't represent me with your false lies. And that's serious stuff, because he said, I ain't going to forgive that.
No, you'd be in complete breach of the terms and conditions of the covenant, period.
Right.
And you won't have a quick
There's no way around that.
Light, but it ain't going to be with him.
Right. And Yahowah's revelation, does he give us his name?
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
How many times?
7,000.
7,000.
Exactly right.
That's another 3,500. He joins it with other names.
Do you find Yahowah's name in the Quran?
No.
Not once.
How about Paul's letters?
Not at all.
Not once.
Not once. If
I don't think the Talmud writes it down, do they?
No.
You know where else you won't find it? In the Talmud. And you won't find it in the book of Urantia. So let's all stop playing around. There's no
don't look for it in Enoch either.
Right. Now, just using Yahowah's name is not sufficient in and of itself to prove that Yahowah authored it. There's a lot of nutcases out there that claim to be
Yahweh this.
Yahweh this, Yahweh that. So just using Yahowah's name, Satan knows and uses Yahowah's name. That it's better than not knowing it, but it's a lot more than is needed. Now, I'm just going to say, if you can be so easily fooled that you're going to promote a book of Urantia, a lunar Shabbat, the book of Enoch, then you do not know Yahowah and his plan well enough to think for a moment that you're part of the covenant. You're just not. And that's the reason why Yahowah doesn't base his relationship on feelings, on sensations, on anything other than knowledge. Because knowledge and understanding provide the perspective that precludes you being deceived in that way. It's extremely important to be grounded for your perspective.
Well, I want to be able to say what Dode said. You know, I don't care how many sins. I have more sins than I have hair on my head, which is I have more sins than I have hair on my head too. I don't have that much hair, but regardless, you know, you can't keep me out. I've got the Torah in my hand.
Right, that's right. Yeah, you can't keep me out.
That's where you want to be.
And he's not.
I don't have the book of whatever in my hand. I've got the Torah.
Right. He's not.
I'm going to give a little parable.
He's celebrating Yahweh. He says, "I trust you." Go ahead.
I would love to give a parable to those out there who think that they can mix. The Israelites in the north mixed, and what happened to them? You think just because you know Yahweh's name, they knew Yahweh's name?
Correct. Yeah, there is nothing more devastating than Babel, than commingling.
No.
In fact, what I want to do here is I want to begin by ending what is the 7th chapter of Observations by explaining how Paul was the ultimate master of a word that we considered in our program last week, was auf. And it is the essence of what we're discussing here. The place where we read this was in Bereshith Genesis. And so let me reread the text of Bereshith Genesis, and then we'll consider what Paul had to say. Yahweh said, "Now the serpent." Serpent is an interesting term, folks. I mean, serpent, Yahweh's very descriptive. Is Satan a snake? Hell no. He is not a snake.
Good metaphor.
It's a metaphor. Snakes, they slither across the low to the ground. They many of them are venomous, a poison. It's a nerve agent. It will render you incapable of responding. You know. Then, by the way, they're also cold-blooded. There's a lot of really interesting metaphors. Where does snakes live? Holes in the ground. Now the serpent was subtle, crafty, and clever. A room. Tricky, treacherous, shrewd, and sly. If I'm trying to trick you, Kirk, into believing that I am a scratch golfer, and that I can, for $1,000 an hour, I can make you a scratch golfer. Am I going to prevail if I approach you as my normal self that couldn't break 80 today if I tried?
Well, probably not.
No,
you wouldn't be so convincing.
You're just not. No, I couldn't approach you as who I am. You know, a broken down guy in his 60s who comes over the top and has a tendency to come over the top. A lot of times, what you end up with is a pull hook.
Yeah, you can smother it or you take it out.
Yeah, particularly because my swing's a little flat these days. So I'm just not going to do that. You know, if I can't be myself and fool you. Satan never attempts to fool people by being himself. He's not going to. Hey, I'm the adversary. I am, a malak with a bad attitude. I'm a malak that can't be trusted. You know, there's a lot of malak. You know, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of them, for all we know. You know, I'm just a malak, one of thousands or millions of these spiritual beings that Yahweh created as tools, as implements. I'm just a bad one, a really bad one, dented, corrupt. And I'm such a bad malak that God actually has a title for me Hasatan, the adversary. When Hasatan walked up to Yahowah, did he say, "Hey, I'd like to introduce myself. Let's play all of our cards right here, open on the table. I'm called the serpent because I'm venomous and sneaky and crafty, and I am serpentine is the way that I travel, and I'm toxic. The God that you've come to know, he calls me the adversary."
Mm-hmm.
So, and my ambition is to fool humanity into thinking that I'm more important than God. Did you read anything about him saying any of that?
No, I think he came as beautiful light, quite honestly.
Yeah. And that's the thing that there's so much you would like to just shout into the faces of those who are religious and say, your religion, the Lord of your religion is Satan. And the reason you don't recognize it is you don't understand who Satan is or how Satan works. But Satan is the God of your religion. You're worshiping the God of your religion. So Satan was subtle, crafty, and clever. More so than all of the living creatures of the environs, the expanse, which Yahweh Almighty had engaged. He's just saying that, God created a lot of living things. Hasatan, this spiritual messenger, one of them. It's just that Satan was the shrewdest, the most cunning and clever. Sly. All those terms, by the way, suggest that Hasatan can't be trusted, and that Hasatan never presents himself as he is.
No,
to be worshipped as Allah, he has to present himself as God. He has to present himself as being against the adversary to fool people into believing that he, as Allah, is God. So then, Yahweh Almighty provided instruction and direction. And by the way, I should say that before I think I actually skipped ahead here. It is very important to recognize that this myth of Satan and another angel, a good angel and a bad angel, even if we knew they were Malach messengers on either shoulder, or somehow like in the book of Zohar and Kabbalah, where the adversary and God are cosmic equals going at it. Which is basically the lore of paganism, that God's warring. Nah.
And God's pushing like a bug if he wanted to.
Yahweh created him.
Yeah.
And Yahweh can and will lock him up. But Yahweh created him. And when you realize that, and God's very clear in the book of Yashayah, I created good and I created evil. And he created evil.
Yeah.
Had to.
He says it all throughout the book of Job.
Right. Had to.
Is there any other way that there's no other way? There's no duality in the universe. No, there's one singularity.
Right. One singular supreme being.
Yahweh.
And then
it's illogical that he wouldn't. He has to, or there couldn't be any evil there because he created the whole thing. So he had to have done it for a reason.
Right.
For choice.
And the reason's obvious. Choice. That's why it was a tree of knowledge of good and evil. It implies choice. My son took an Old Testament theology class from a guy that was instrumental in providing what is laughingly called the New Living Translation, which is just absolute rubbish. And it's just if there ever was a joke, it's a joke. And it's not even a good paraphrase. They might as well claim that they are God and that they are writing their own book. But it was interesting when my son had a very difficult time in that class because he was talking about the Garden of Eden and says, there are those who present the Garden of Eden as a referendum on free will. There's nothing there's absolutely nothing to do with free will in the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. It isn't a story of choice or free will. Well, it's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Think it through. God offered them a choice. You can eat anything you want, but don't eat of that, because if you eat of that one tree, you're going to die. Why? Because it has information regarding good and evil. Without ability to discriminate, such a thing is meaningless. So,
come again? Without the ability to what?
Discriminate.
Be discerning.
Oh, gosh, I love that word.
I love the word discriminate.
It's the sexiest word out there today, because I see a bunch of people that have no discrimination whatsoever.
No, it can't.
Right. If you can't discriminate, you can't be moral. You can't be just. You have no basis.
Why does that fall on deaf ears? I mean, that is such simple logic. And I mean, the whole political correctness thing.
And they would have you not to discriminate between religions, for example. Well, you have to. If you don't discriminate between religions, then you're a nincompoop.
If you're just choosing religions, you'd have to choose one. You'd have to discriminate against the other.
Yeah. Now,
but we're all created equal. No, you know what?
And by the way, the notion of discrimination being gender or skin color is a foolish use of the term, because to discriminate is a cerebral term. To discriminate is a judicial term. To discriminate is to exercise judgment. And so it's a thoughtful term. Somebody who is discriminating will not make a decision about people based upon their gender or the skin color. They'll make a determination about them based upon their beliefs, their words, their deeds,
their character,
what they say and what they do. And so to use discrimination in context with ethnicity and gender shows that you have no understanding of the term. Now, you can use it regarding sexual preference, because you can deal with sexual preference as what is normal, what is beneficial, what is abnormal, and what is not conducive to a healthy individual or society. So you can discriminate from a very positive way of understanding the word in that sense. So here's what Satan said. He said to the woman, hypothetically, while kindling some animosity, because unto the contrary, God said, you should not eat of any and every tree, min kol, of the garden. Now, we know, in fact, that's not what God said. We know, in fact, that this is what Yahweh actually said. He says, so then Yahweh Almighty provided instruction and direction for the man by saying, from every tree of the garden you can eat. Whatever you want. And from the tree of the perceptive application of information, of good, tob, and evil, ra, you should not make a practice of eating from it. Because in the day that you eat from it, you will be dispatched and die. And by the way, they were dispatched on that day, and they would eventually die. Yeah, they would die.
Yes.
So what Satan did is he took what God said, and he got part of it right. What he said wasn't entirely wrong. It was partially accurate. And that's the problem that I have with so many people, is that they say, well, not everything that Paul said was wrong. Some of the things that Paul said are useful and good. Yeah.
So what?
And that makes the lies far more believable. Yahweh doesn't grade on the curve. You're not going to become part of his family because you decided that, well, I'm going to accept one of the terms of the covenant. I think I'm going to accept circumcision. But I'm not going to accept disassociating from my country or my society. I'm not going to accept this notion that I have to disassociate from the notion of trusting my government, my military, my police, my Social Security, all of those kinds of things to take care of me, as opposed to, I'm not going to meet with him on the 7 days because I like Christmas and Easter better. And, I think there's some things that Paul wrote that I rather like, so I'm going to hang on to Paul too. No, you don't get to do that with God. You either take him at his word, you accept what he said, and you reject what is false, or you're not part of his covenant. You can't be, for example, part of Yahweh's covenant and promote the book of Urantia. Not acceptable. There is nothing worse than something that claims, like the book of Urantia claims, that part of its inspiration is a blending of the words of Jesus. Paul claimed that he spoke for Jesus.
It's not even that. It's worse than that. He's claiming that this comes from celestial beings. Guess how many in number?
Oh yeah, but it's still a blend of the humanitarian teachings of Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can't commingle in this way. You can't blend things together in this way. There is nothing that is more damaging than Babel. A Bible that commingles truth and lies. That's the single most damning thing. We use this example on this program all the time. A counterfeit bill is only credible. It will only fool people if it's mostly accurate. The fact that it's virtually all accurate and very little inaccurate only makes it more beguiling.
Yeah.
Right. Christianity is not a wholesale lie. It's deception piled right on top of the truth. So, the very fact that Satan based something on what God had said, but took it out of context, misquoted him, inaccurately quoted him, and then came up with an implication that was the opposite of what God said, is how Satan misleads people in religion. So, and the consequence of that, by the way, is you're going to die. If you mix, in fact, it just struck me. It's the tree of knowledge, of discerning, of having access to good and evil. Which is evil and good, truth and lies commingled, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Mixed together, both available.
Right.
And what was the consequence of eating it? You're going to be dispatched and you're going to die.
Right.
So the tree itself tells us that that truth and lies mixed together are deadly. He said, if you consistently eat from that tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you're going to be dispatched, excommunicated, and you're going to die, which is absolute proof that God's not going to accept you. You're not going to live if you're doing the same thing, if you're commingling truth and lies.
Well, I would add further that, when you study something very hard and you spend a lot of time on it, it does get into your brain. If you study the Torah, you're getting tremendously good nutrition. Your brain takes that knowledge and plays with it and gives you the aha moments, as we all have covered.
Well, for example, that's an aha moment.
Reading lies
if you mix good and evil, you're going to die. If you consume with that which is true and that which is false, you are going to die. That's an aha moment.
Will absolutely poison you.
Yeah. Now, I've never heard anybody say, well, that's God's proof that you can't blend truth and lies and prevail. And that's Paul's letters. They blend a little thread of truth through a tapestry that is otherwise wholly deceptive and errant. And so to say, well, one time Paul actually said something nice about the Torah. Yeah, he did.
Well, one time Muhammad said something nice too, but
yeah. So if you blend right and wrong, you're going to die.
Yeah.
It's just straightforward. That's why on the Sermon on the Mount, as Yahweh is advancing the eternal importance of the Torah, and saying that, as he's introducing Christians to Paul, telling Christians, listen, you don't know me. You call me Lord, Lord. None of you are going to get into heaven. You claim that you've done all these miracles and have these wonderful experiences as pretending to know me.
I.e. feelings.
I.e. your feelings. And I'm telling you, I don't know you. Get away from me. Before then, he introduces Paul as the wolf in sheep's clothing. He talks about trees. And what he says is there is nothing good that comes from a bad tree. Nothing.
Wow.
And there's nothing bad that comes from a good tree. And so this tree of the knowledge of good and evil, it's deadly because it mixes those two together, making it a bad tree.
I can take it even further.
Okay.
In Chazon, Revelation, he says, you're not hot, you're not cold, but you're what? Babel,
right.
you're
lukewarm,
mixed.
Yeah, you're lukewarm.
If that doesn't speak to you and at least put a little bit of a shudder into you,
right.
Even the most dense of persons with very little ethics or right discernment that can read Torah can rectify that. If
for example,
man, you don't have to be
the Laodiceans, which would be the non-Orthodox, non-Roman Catholic Protestant Christians. They have separated themselves from Roman Catholicism, which is, from God's perspective, the single most evil institution that man has ever created. Most pervasively evil institution. They've separated themselves from that. That's good. They carry around in their Bible the Torah and the prophets and the Psalms. That part's good. They know that there was a fellow, they don't know his name, but that fulfilled Passover. I don't know what else happened. And that they know that he was predicted and prophesied in the Torah, prophets, and Psalms. And so there is some stuff there that has some benefit. But it's commingled with Babylonian, pagan myths and Pauline poison to the point where, it's neither fish nor fowl. It's commingled, hot and warm together. And what do you have? Tepid. It's not refreshing to drink, and it's not useful for cleansing. It's just blah. And it's from God's point of view,
that Laodice
vomit.
Is a woman? She's a woman. She was an actual woman. She killed her husbands. She killed her family.
Yeah. It means, the Greek word means, and he didn't speak Greek, so we got to be a little careful here. But the Greek word here would, and it's used as a name, but means the people legislate. He's talking about the Western democracies. So it's important to recognize that off this treacherous means of
mean spirit,
of being hypocritical and of being conspiring is how Satan works. So here is something that Paul wrote. I'm going to read Galatians 1:6 through 1:8 and here, and then go beyond that, and I think I've got 9, 10, 12, because every word of this is a commingling, a babble of trying to cleverly, slyly, hypothetically creating some animosity and inflamed resentment against God. It says grace and peace. Grace, of course, the gratia, the cherise, the cute little naked girls.
Pretty.
Yeah. To you and peace from God, Father of us and Lord, Iusu Christu. Now, there's a lot of things that Yosha was. He was not Iushu, he was not Christu, and he most certainly wasn't Lord. The one having produced and giving himself on account of the sins and errors of us. That's not why he gave himself. And all he did is that the Passover sacrifice was for life, as the
priest the soul, allows it to live.
Yeah, that's right. So that somehow, through indefinite means, he might possibly gouge or tear out, pluck or uproot us from the past circumstances of the old system, which had been in place, which is disadvantageous and harmful, corrupt and worthless, malicious and malignant, extended downward and in opposition to the desire and will, the inclination and intent of God, the Father of us. I read that and I just want to scream. My whole body goes into almost revulsion. He's saying that this Lord Iusu Christu gave himself not to be a benefit to those who would accept what he was offering. No, to free people from the Torah, from the old system.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says the old system is malignant, it's repulsive. You know, what old system is there in this context? He sure as hell didn't come to free us from Zohar. Didn't exist. Kabbalah didn't exist. He couldn't have come to free us from the system of Islam. It didn't exist. Or from Scientology. It didn't exist. Or Urantia. It didn't exist. And he certainly wasn't freeing us from the old system of the Egyptians. It's never articulated.
No.
There's only
you got to
one
think about
system.
it real simple here, people.
Real simple. There's only one system that Paul was against. What was that system that Paul was against?
Torah.
The Torah.
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 It's so easy.
He has his Jesus sacrificing himself to free people from the Torah.
Ridiculous.
On a 1 to 10 scale,
it's an 11
of animosity towards God, creating a hypothetical that will instill aggravation. On a 1 to 10 scale, this is a billion.
Yeah. You got to think about it. Yahweh came as Yahusha to free us from Yahweh. Are you insane?
Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah. And yes, that's correct. Mm-hmm. To whom the that's why God doesn't allow people into his family based on feelings. The only way to be part of his family is based upon knowing. Because when you know and you read this rubbish, you don't try to commingle it in with your beliefs. You spew it out of your mouth. Your body convulses. You're just disgusted by it. And he went on to say, to whom the assessment of the brilliant splendor, the opinion regarding the glorious radiance, and the appearance of the shining light, the characterization of the manifestation of God's reputation by means of the old and new systems. Amen. Let it be so. I marvel. I am astonished. I'm amazed, wondering, and surprised that, namely, in this way, quickly and in haste, you change. You desert. You depart, becoming disloyal apostates and traitors away from your calling in the name of gratia, those cute little naked girls, to a different.
Yeah, aren't they cute?
healing message and beneficial messenger. Yeah. Who would that be? Who was the rival?
Yeah.
The Torah?
Little black over there?
The Torah, which does not exist differently, if not conditionally or hypothetically negated with the definition of Amph. This is the definition of Amph. In fact, in Hebrew, what he just said was Amph, which does not exist differently, if not conditionally or hypothetically negated, because perhaps some of the ones stirring you up, confusing you, and also wanting to be proposing to change and pervert the beneficial message and healing message of Christu. But to the contrary, if we or a messenger out of heaven conveys a healing messenger or beneficial message to you, which is approximate, or contrary to, beyond, or positioned alongside that which we delivered, that we is Paul and his pal Satan, as a beneficial messenger and announced as a healing message to you, then a curse with a dreadful consequence exists on them. He's got animosity towards those who speak on behalf of the Torah, which all of Yosha's hand-picked disciples did.
Yeah,
he has animosity. Curse on them. Animosity. He's kindling animosity based upon his hypothetical statement and conditions. As we have said already, and even just now, immediately thereafter, repeated, I say, if under the condition someone believes a helpful messenger or communicates a useful message to you, contrary or in opposition, close to or approximate to that which you received, it shall be, in fact, I command and want it to exist as a curse, dreadful consequence. Now, does Yahweh ever tell us that he wants there to be a dreadful consequence to somebody who
walks away from him?
Has a slightly different message than, if it's really close, but just ever so slightly different than what he said, does he say, I want there to be a dreadful consequence? I'm putting a curse on them.
Yeah, the word he used right there.
If there's a curse on them and a dreadful consequence, they brought it on themselves. But here's the key. He's talking to people who have come to accept, not to those who have come to promote. He will condemn those promoting, which are the disciples, at a later moment. Right now, he's condemning his audience, the victims, those who chose one over the other, who were now listened to what Paul had to say and rejected him, and listened to what Yahuwah had to say and accepted what Yahuwah said about God, about Yosha, and about Yahweh. That's what he's saying. And so the victims, those who choose poorly, are not condemned. God doesn't condemn them. Maybe Satan would want them condemned. But that whole concept of I want you condemned and repeating it twice, it's not God's voice. For because currently and simultaneously men I persuade, I presently, actively, and accurately use words to win favor of, seducing, misleading, coaxing, conniving, appealing, and placating, or alternatively, the God. Poorly written, but what he's saying is, am I the one that is seducing and misleading you? Or is it God that is seducing and misleading you?
Absurd.
Yeah, I think the word that when he was saying like the his rage, there's another Hebrew word called za'af.
Yeah, of course, it's very close to
and I think that was
word
the
that we're
word
examining.
he was using.
Right. But what's amazing here is he's saying, which one of us is misleading you? Is it me or God? That's what he just said. For currently and simultaneously, men I persuade, I'm accurately with words trying to win favor, seducing, misleading, coaxing, and convincing. Is it me that's doing those things, or is it God? Who are you going to believe? Are you going to believe that old system in the Torah? You're going to believe God? You're going to believe me. I mean, how can you be a Christian? Are you incapable of reading this and thinking it through? It's like I would say in the book to those that would be stupid enough to believe the book of Urantia. Who are you going to trust? Are you going to trust this idiot? We're going to trust God. Who do you want to trust? Your answer can't be both. Paul is saying,
no.
You're going to trust God, or you're going to trust me? Are you going to believe me that I'm the one seducing you and misleading you, or is it God that is misleading you with that old system? Wow.
I have a theory about Paul. He, in the beginning, had because, look, he was rabbinical.
Yeah.
And not even good at that. He was failed rabbinical.
Yeah, the rabbis
in the beginning,
hate Yahowah.
Yeah, they hated him.
Despise him.
And
they despised the Torah so much they came up with their own Talmud to replace it. Their oral law, their Torah.
Their Torah, yeah.
All right.
But with the word za'af is like overboiling rage. You know what it's also used to describe in the book of Yonah?
What's that?
It is used for the raging of the sea.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, especially
as a metaphor
for the
Gentiles. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because every place we read about the sea, and when it's raging, it's a metaphor for Gentile nations inspired by Satan, their religions and their militarism and their politics and being so anti-Israel. Or by comparison and contrast, I seek and desire to please and accommodate humans. Yet nevertheless, if men I was pleasing and accommodating, exciting the emotions and lifting up a slave of Christu, certainly not was me.
Wow, he's playing Messiah there, right? He just turned himself into the Messiah.
Right. A slave of Christu certainly was not me. But nevertheless, I profess and reveal to you, brother. Not Yahowah. I profess and reveal to you, Yahowah. Brother. I say, but I, Paul, say. But nevertheless, but I profess and reveal to you, brothers, of the beneficial message, which having been communicated advantageously and through myself. This is man versus God. That is the basis of Paul. You know, I just cringe to think that my good friend Ken, that I wrote so many books with and had such a wonderful experience with, still promotes this piece of crap. But nevertheless, I profess and reveal to you, brothers, the beneficial message, have been communicated advantageously through myself, by me, because it was not in accord with man. But neither because I, by man, associating myself with it, nor was I taught or instructed as a disciple. That's for damn sure. But to the contrary, by the way of a revelation, an appearance, serving to uncover and unveil, Iusu, Christu. You know, Paul was in Jerusalem. Paul was in Israel when when Yosha picked his disciples. Why in the hell didn't he pick Paul if, in fact, he was going to reveal himself to him? Mm-hmm. Why was Paul's experience with who he claims was Christu Iusu, why was it the antithesis of everybody else's experience with him? Why was he blinded, made lame, when Yosha caused the blind to see and the lame to walk? Why, if he was given a revelation by Iusu Christu, Yahusha, why does he never once quote him? Ever.
Seems to always contradict him.
Why,
but
when Yosha says, why are you asking Yosha himself would say, why are you asking me that question? Why don't you read it in the Torah, the prophets? Mm-hmm. And did Yosha ever once say, you know, God says this, that, and the other thing, but Yosha say?
Never. Everything's a quote or an explanation of a quote.
You know, there's a mashal that immediately comes to mind. Mm-hmm. The man whose own foolishness Foolishness in Hebrew means an unlearned man in Torah.
Right,
has brought on his own head ruin.
Lo Yada.
Yet blames Yahweh. And blames Yahweh and is enraged at him. The same word we're talking about there. Za'af.
Yeah, the off. But because
violently.
Indeed you heard of my wayward behavior. Yeah, Paul was murderous. He was violent.
Oh, yeah.
Paul claims to have been a sexual pervert. For because indeed you heard of my wayward behavior in some time and place in the practice of Judaism, namely, that because throughout showing superiority, surpassing any measure of restraint, and to an extraordinary degree, and better than anyone else, I was aggressively and intensely pursuing, persecuting, oppressing, and harassing the called out of God. And I was and am devastating her, continuing to undermine, overthrow, and annihilate her. What did Yahweh tell his most beloved about being the one to build his home and family, Dode? Did he say, Dode, you ain't going to build my home because you're a man of war?
Right.
No one he loved more than Dode. So do you think that Yahweh is going to pick a man who admits to have been murderous, more violent than anyone else, to reveal his testimony about how to be part of his family? No.
Well, it's really laughable, this whole thing. I mean, if you put it in context, it's just
God does not reveal himself through murderers.
No.
You know, no one. You know, there is. I made a statement on the last program, and I didn't get a letter hostile to this, or if it did, I haven't read it yet. That I said, you know, well, God does not ask me who else is going to be included in his family. And my opinion of somebody, whether or not they become a member of the covenant, means absolutely nothing. I mean, I have no standing. I have no authority in this. I don't want any authority in it.
But you don't hold the keys to the kingdom?
No. That based upon my exchange with Moody Jeff, who we were reviewing, I don't like him. I don't want to spend eternity with him. I don't want him as part of the family. Now, if Yahweh wants him, and he accepts Yahweh and stops rejecting him, and has a transformation, then that's between he and Yahweh. And if he's part of Yahweh's family, then you know, I will accept him. But right now, based on what I know, I wouldn't walk across the street to help that man if a convoy of trucks was headed his way to run him over. I don't like him. Now, God doesn't use people who are overtly hostile to him. You know, yeah, I was an evangelical, taught evangelism. I was an ordained ruling elder in the Presbyterian Church. You were really active religiously too, Kirk, and Lisa, you were really out there.
Oh yes, I was really out there.
It's one thing to be out there, having been misled and promoting the myths, and actively pursuing, aggressively, physically harming Yahweh's family, his children. We did not do that. You did not do that. You weren't out in Israel and said, "I think I'm going to go kill a few Jews today because that's what my relationship with God's all about." I think what I'm going to do is go harass people that claim to be part of his covenant family. That's what Paul was doing.
Yes.
God does not accept those kind of people.
That is what Rabbi Akiba did, and that is what Muhammad did. There's a pattern here.
Exactly. So that is enough to exclude you.
Yes.
And so I was and continue to progress, accomplishing a great deal. Attitude. I'm better than anyone. I'm accomplishing a great deal. You know, I began this program and says, you know, this isn't a competition. If you can create a better translation than what I've written, More power to you. I'm delighted. I'm glad. It's marvelous. Share it. The moment we move to ego, to think that we're doing something that no one else can do, should do, has done, we're crazy. Now, I don't mind, and I think it's appropriate to do as Dode did. Dode came up with some marvelous insights. I mean, 119th Psalm, I'm going to write 8 statements for each of the 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet to explain how to properly observe the Torah. Okay, that's brilliant. And he shared it.
No, that is
and he
the
celebrated
best piece of literature done by man ever.
Right, ever written. And he celebrated it. And you know something? When I study the Torah and the prophets and the Psalms, and by studying them, a insight into Yahweh's nature is laid out before us, and we share that. I celebrate it. I'm excited by it, and I don't have any problem saying, I'm not aware that anybody else has shared this. The set apart spirit is set apart, not holy. That she has feminine attributes, represents our spiritual mother. That the Mikre represents a path that we walk to God. They're invitations to meet with Yahweh. And the covenant has 5 terms and conditions. And you go through one thing after another. That there's 3 ultimate destinations for human souls. All of it is there in His Word. We can celebrate it when we figure this stuff out based upon what He said. But to think that we are special, that we are that we, from Paul's perspective here, that we're accomplishing a great deal, then you've lost sight of what you're doing here. It's one thing to read, to study, to be discerning and discriminating regarding the information you are provided in the Torah and the prophets, and then to say, this is what God said, and this is what its implications are. It's another thing entirely to say, I just got revelation that from God directly, or that I've got revelation that is even better than God's. And and when you realize that 100% of what we're sharing here is derived directly from what God told us, how could you take credit for that? I mean, thinking that you're special because you're taking the time to listen to and then explain what God said. You should be excited about it. You know that what you're doing brings a smile to Yahweh's face, is why He wrote it, but it's His testimony, not ours. So I persist, moving forward in the practice of Judaism. And so I was and continue to progress, accomplishing a great deal. And I persist, moving forward in the practice of Judaism. When last time I read Yosha's statement in Matanya, I believe it's 23, where he is addressing the practitioners of Judaism, those who are promoting Judaism.
The rabbi right there.
Rabbinic Judaism. He calls them every foul, disgusting term there is. In fact, his primary reference to it is, you are a brood of vipers.
He's quite eloquent, isn't he?
Yeah, brood of vipers. And so if you are progressing in the practice of Judaism, then from God's point of view, you are what Yosha says of them in Matthew 23. Now, if you want to read Hosea about the practice of Judaism as it exists in that day, or Yirmiyah, or everything we've read thus far in Yashaya, Isaiah.
That's absolutely the same tone.
The same tone. He hates it. So if you were saying that this is a credential, God's saying, hell no. This is blameworthy.
Shaul, Sheol, study under. Hillel? Oh, wait. Yeah, that sounds real familiar. As in, hello,
by the way,
Ben Shachar.
Yeah, I came up with his name is actually based on a Hebrew word, and it's we'll find that Hebrew word, and when we move into Yahshua 3, that the basis of his name is part of the religious condemnation that Yahweh provides in Yahshua 3.
Yeah.
So he says, over and beyond many contemporaries among my race, excessively and abundantly enthusiastic, zealous and excited, devoted and burning with passion, vehemently adhering to and belonging to the traditions and teachings handed down by my forefathers. And Paul, by the way, never left that. He claims to be zealous for the teachings handed down by the forefathers. Is there a book in Judaism that is comprised of the teachings handed down by the forefathers?
No.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is. They claim that the teachings that were handed down by the
but that's not the truth.
The oral
they think that is the oral Torah, and the oral Torah they now refer to as being indistinguishable from the Talmud.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he's saying I'm Talmudic. That's what he's saying. I'm Talmudic. So rather, there's actually a guy that's some nincompoop out there that wrote a little pamphlet, booklet on that Paul wasn't condemning the Torah, he was condemning the Talmud. Well, here, I got news for you. He's embracing the Talmud, and 100% of his attacks on
the Torah.
are against the Torah of Yahweh. So he says, excessively and enthusiastic, zealous and excited, burning with passion, and adherent to belong to the traditions and teachings handed down by my forefathers. That ain't the Torah of Yahweh. That's the Talmud of Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
But at a point in a time when it pleased and was chosen, enjoyable, and better for God. Oh, I just love that. Better for God. The one having appointed me. By the way, there was a God that appointed him. There, no question about it.
There was.
I mean, someone who wanted to be perceived as God.
Setting me aside, a demon, yes.
Setting me aside out of the womb of my mother. Yahweh said that he knew Yirmiyah in his womb.
Mm-hmm.
He said knew him in his womb. Did Yirmiyah have a religious upbringing that he was celebrating? If known by Yahweh and set aside by Yahweh, would you be what he just said? Enthusiastic for a religious tome? Would you be aggressively pursuing murderous against the members of Yahweh's family if you were really set apart from the womb? Yirmiyah's only concern when Yahweh asked him to reveal his testimony wasn't his prior religious entanglements. It wasn't his vicious and immoral past. He didn't say anything about those things. He says, I'm a little young. If you pick somebody a little older with some more experience, maybe that would be the right way to go. I'm pretty young here. Wow. Paul is the antithesis of everyone Yahweh has ever chosen. To reveal and disclose, uncovering and unveiling the Son of Him. So, wait a minute. Why can't Yahweh reveal the Son of Him? What was the purpose of Psalm 22, Psalm 88, Yahshua 53?
Revealing the one on the upright pole.
Yeah. What is the purpose of those books if Yahweh wasn't revealing His Son?
There is.
No. And if He wanted to reveal His Son, why wasn't Paul one of the 12 that was chosen? Yeah. And why was his message
you want to
the
tell me that Yahweh picked a murderer to
Yeah.
bring His message? out to
if you're a Muslim, you would think that Allah did. That Allah picked a terrorist, a pedophile, a rapist, a man who was demon possessed. Yeah. By the way, if you were set apart from the womb by Yahweh to be His messenger, how could you be demon possessed? Paul claims to be demon possessed in 2 Corinthians.
It is impossible.
No, of course it's impossible.
Because
I could announce the healing message among the races immediately. I did not immediately. By the way, immediately. Oh, so much for 3 years of learning. Man, I came to know Yahweh. I will tell you for darn sure, I did not claim that I was prepared to be able to reveal His message immediately. And I went to the best source there is on Yahweh, His Torah. And His original words from the oldest extant manuscripts. And I will tell you there was no immediacy. And I can tell you that in so doing, in the early years, I got as much right as I got wrong. It takes time. There is no way to do it quickly. And anybody that thinks that they can instantly know, this is that Christian
give me the short version, would you?
Yeah, that Christian mythos of I got my own personal revelation. Yeah, the fact is the revelation is entirely contrary to everything God said, just like Paul's was. For Paul to say that I was immediately prepared to present this message is to say the message that I am giving is the message I was previously prepared to give. And the message he was previously prepared to give, he's just acknowledged. It's Talmudic. Talmud hates the Torah.
And it's Greek because he's saying gratia. So he's pronouncing another deity altogether and saying this is the message.
Yep. Oh, then he says, I could announce the healing message among the races immediately. I did not ask the advice of or consult with flesh or blood. Wow. Isn't that stunning? And it's a perfect depiction of religion. I've said it so many times. To be a Christian, you have to be either ignorant, irrational, or both. And those terms I don't use as pejoratives. Ignorant means you don't know. You don't know what Yahweh said. You don't know what Paul said. Or you're irrational. You think that mutually exclusive concepts can both be true. So you either have to be ignorant, you don't know what Yahweh said, you don't actually know what Paul said, or you don't know what Yosha said, or you're incapable of recognizing that things that say the opposite, that make claims that are the antithesis of one another, cannot both be true. And you are unaware that strands of truth woven through a fabric that is deceptive isn't marginally useful, but instead extraordinarily toxic. You cannot be an informed and rational Christian. It is impossible. You cannot be an informed and rational Muslim. It's impossible. The Quran's the dumbest book ever written. Muhammad was the most vile human who ever lived. If you just read this stuff, folks, the truth is not hard to find. Now, I want to make a transition, at least begin the thought process that we're going to pursue on Chapter 8, signs posted along the way. That whole chapter is my favorite thing. I think it's become your favorite thing, Kirk, and also Lisa. And that is, if something pops up, and God uses a term in a provocative way, we need to pursue it. And particularly if the way that he uses the term is inconsistent with the way that man will present the term. And in this case, the term was Zion. I come across it several times, and Yashayah, as we were going through it, and it was used not as a mountain, but as signs posted along the way on a mountain, and that mountain was Moriah. Yeah. And so that was so inconsistent with everything I heard. I said, this ought to be interesting. Let's just see where it goes. Let's see what we can discern about Zion. Did Yahweh tell us that Zion was a separate mountain, or did Yahweh tell us that Zion is the signs that he posted along the way on the ridgeline that is Moriah? In other words, is the story of Abraham and Yishak on Moriah a Zion? Is the upright pole upon which Yosha fulfilled Pesach, is that a Zion, a signpost?
Yes.
On the
yes.
way?
Yes.
Yeah. Is Dode's home there on the lower part of that ridgeline? Is that a sign?
Yes.
Part of the family. Is Yahweh having his home initially built halfway up that ridgeline on the Temple Mount part of it? Yes. Mm-hmm. Are the measurements that we can deduce about these places?
Staggering measurements, yes.
Yeah, particularly
amazing
when
things.
You get away from a man's measuring. You get away from miles and things of that nature, and you go to whether you use meters or yards. A meter or a yard is determined by it's a step. It is a step.
It's a step.
It's a step. When you realize that Yahweh's unit of measure was a cubit, and the cubit is from the elbow to the tip of the finger. Yeah. So that's a cubit. I want to put measurements in human scale, but that the most important part of what Yahweh conveys is about a stride. And that we find that everything that is part of the signposts along the way are 777 strides. All of a sudden, we've got some interesting confirmation of what Zion is all about. So, just to share this is the introduction to it, and we'll pick this up next week. It says in the previous chapter is the one that we've just been reviewing in chapter 7. I made a promise, which was to explain the reasons behind placing Zion on the ridgeline of Moriah, revealing why the first sign along the way rises out of the ruins of the city of David, and why the last will be erected on the barren summit of the world's most important place. But far more than just resolving a curiosity, what I was hoping to accomplish is to explain the purpose of Zion, revealing what the signs posted along the way mean to the God who established them. What's written on them? Where do they direct us to? Signs, a road sign, it provides you direction. If you go here, it will lead you there. This is the road. If you take this road, it's going to go to this place.
Yeah.
What the
sign?
They
were followers of the way. Interesting.
Right. Exactly. To do so, we will have to consider what Yahweh has to say about Zion's association with the city of David, while remaining cognizant of the special relationship that exists between Yahweh and his favorite son. Yahweh's favorite son is not Yosha.
Right.
Yahweh's favorite son is Dode. Yeah, David. And our perspective will be framed by the events that occurred on Moriah 1,000 years before the city of Dode and the home of Dode was built on Moriah. What happened between Abraham and his son Yishak, and their interactions with Yahweh and his son Yosha on Moriah. Along the way, we will consider what God had to say about his home. One prepared by Dode and built by Solomon, and its restoration as the millennial home which Yahweh himself will construct upon his return, and not upon the Temple Mount. Well, we will have a lot of new and fertile ground to plow. We will begin next week by reviewing what Yahweh has revealed thus far through Yahshua, just to put it all in perspective as he introduces Zion to us here. And then we're going to go back in time, and we're going to consider what happened about 300 years earlier, which is the time of Dode, and what happened on Moriah, and why Yahweh referred to those events as a Zion. A fascinating experience, and it changes one's whole perspective on Zionist, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
The world
I
is
tell you,
so
I was staggered
angry
about the land up there that nobody's ever touched.
I know, it's a wonderful,
I did not know that.
Yeah, I know. See, there are things, and my view there is Yahweh does deploy Malach to intervene in the things that are important to him.
Yeah,
having no one desecrate that ground is important to him.
Yeah.
Malach, if you were to try to build, you say, I'm going to buy that and I want to build on it.
Yeah, ain't going to happen.
You're going to die. You're going to die. You're just going to die. God's going to say, you're not, not you. Not you. It's just like if you were to go, I would love to have the experience to go into that inner room and look at the Ark of the Covenant, not because I want to see the Ark of the Covenant. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing it one day, but that's not the reason. The Torah is set right beside it.
Yeah.
The original Torah and Moshe's own handwriting is right there.
Oh.
Would like to.
So the tablets
I want to read it. But if any of us were to try to go there, first of all, we would not going to do that. So, but you don't. If Yahweh were to say, I want you to go there and take your camera and photograph it and share it with people and do your best to translate it so people understand what I had to say, absolutely. We would all rush to that opportunity. But if God doesn't ask you to do it, you're in a fool's folly. You cannot do that because you want to be special. But it's an extraordinary experience, I think, to celebrate things like Torah and Zion, and to understand what a term like that means and what it can tell us, and to look at the affirmations that it all fits together is just a beautiful story about God's home.
I was reading yesterday one. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you finish.
Sure.
My point was going to be, what is it that the world is opposed to Israelites doing, and Yisrael, particularly around Jerusalem? What is the world condemning Jews for doing today?
Building homes.
That is correct. That is the right answer.
How dare they build homes?
Build homes. What is Yahweh?
Why don't they do something constructive?
Yeah. What is Yahweh going to build there? A home.
A home.
What is it? What is it to Yahweh? His home.
His home.
His home. Yeah. They're condemning Israelites, Jews, for building homes. And the whole world is condemning for building homes. They won't condemn the Muslims.
If you build ovens in Germany, they don't care. No. But homes, how dare you?
Building homes. Yeah, can't be building homes. Yeah, and the Muslims that have to flee the Islamic world, it's because their homes were destroyed by fellow Muslims. But we should bring them into this country.
The last verse in that section you're going to start with next week. I mean, I read that several times this week. It is so where we are as American governments and politicians and religious people. That is just right on the money. Yeah. You're a very good translator, by the way.
I don't know about that. I can tell you that I enjoy it, and because Yahweh is an extraordinarily good storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all you really have to do is come to know him and then convey his story from his perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the rest really fits into place from that point. He is a marvelous storyteller. And I don't. People think of stories as a pejorative, but it's not. It's he tells stories. No,
and his stories are incredibly multidimensional.
Right. Oh, of course. Yeah, they have three different. Every one of them has at least three layers.
Well, don't you think he's going to tell good ones in the future?
Absolutely. Yeah, I want to listen to the reasons behind the platypus. One of the first questions I'm going to ask. Okay, I've been meaning to ask you about it.
Because it's cool, man.
Man, what was it? And then you made the daggone thing poisonous. They got barbs. They got barbs in them. They're poisonous. They're toxic. Huh? What were you thinking?
Don't mess with a platypus, man.
This thing, it's not a bird. It's not a fish. It's not a mammal. What in the hell is this thing?
It's something.
Yeah.
Not only that, how many times have you read Torah and you've come across just one word? Okay, like this word off.
Yeah.
I just started becoming obsessed with it.
Off on off.
Right. I did a whole study on it too. I mean, it was really interesting.
It's in Akkadian text, a religious text. It's in Egyptian. It's in Urdu.
Right. Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Everywhere.
And it's everywhere. Yeah, everywhere.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
Well, and Paul, and I didn't even recognize this before, but Paul's statement in the third chapter of Galatians, as he goes off on his own, you abandoned my version of things and you accepted other people's versions of things. As he goes off on it, he actually uses a Greek word that is the counterpart of umph, hypothetically, creating rancor and animosity. Yeah, he uses a Greek word that is the perfect translation of it. So he even uses it.
And za'af is another. It's almost like it's murderous hatred. That's what Paul had.
Yeah, it is.
Sheol.
Yeah,
he had murderous hatred. Akiba had murderous hatred. Muhammad had murderous hatred. There is a pattern here.
Right, yeah, there is. Yeah, but Paul's murderous hatred, although it started off as murderous hatred from a physical way, to just being an extraordinarily hateful individual through all of his letters. They're very hateful. And so much animosity, particularly at the disciples and directed at Yahweh's Torah. He ultimately, his viciousness was in being a toxin to the soul. He's responsible for these souls of probably 5 billion people dying. And there's no one who's ever been more toxic. Through history, at least 5 billion souls have consumed the venom and have ceased to exist as a direct result of Paul's plague. There's no one in all of human history that comes close to it.
I'll give you an example of that, which is odd, and I think now that I look on it, that when we were church people, Terry and I, we knew there were 7 mikras, Moed mikras. We knew there were celebrations and that we no longer were required to do, so to speak. But when we broke them down, I mean, we knew Pesach was, but we were told that's obviously when Jesus saves you. He gives up. It's like God dies for you, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it never occurred to me till I read your thing on the details of what these things were, was that Pesach is, it finally sunk in that Pesach is not about saving your body, as we always think about when you want to be saved. We're going to come back with our new body, da-da-da. It's saving it was just keeping your soul alive.
Right.
I mean, that's the main thing, because he didn't care about the body. You've got to have your soul alive. And then when you observe matzah, then he'll clean up that soul. I mean, that purifies
for example,
that soul.
Yosha's soul did not die on Pesach.
No.
Yosha's soul never dies.
No.
No.
But at some point, it had to be cleansed with matzah. At some point, you have to. Your soul will have to be cleansed.
You got to remove the fungus. Right.
remove the fungus, all this plague of death that we've been living under.
Now, he was yeasted. His soul was heavily yeasted.
Heavily, he took on all.
Yeah, heavily yeasted. Yeah, his soul was heavily yeasted.
Like the lamb, that's the whole metaphor.
And he paid the price for it being heavily yeasted. And then, but what's interesting is that a soul can be heavily yeasted and still live eternally with Yahowah. If you are Torah observant, if you answer Yahowah's invitations to meet, and if you accept the terms and conditions of the covenant, then it does not matter how much yeast is on your soul, even as much as Yosha had placed on his soul. The purpose of the Torah and the covenant and the mikre is to resolve those things. So when Yosha bore all of that and paid the penalty for that, Yahowah could say to him, "Wait a minute, you answered the Moed mikre. You met with me as I had asked. You accepted the terms and conditions of the covenant. You were Torah observant. Therefore, none of that matters. You are, in my eyes, you're perfect."
Well, I like the concept when the light comes on, where does all the darkness go? Well, it's gone.
Gone.
So now you are pure.
Gone.
I mean, because he can't see, he can't see any of the darkness.
Right.
I mean,
when he was met again by the set-apart spirit in association with his exit from Sheol, and I don't know if the set-apart spirit is able to go into Sheol. That's something that we debate all the time. Roy seems to think. I'm not one who thinks that's the case, but Roy, in terms of this dimensionality thing and the nature of it, is smarter than I am. So I'm not saying that as I'm
no,
smarter
it's not a debate.
than him. I know, and I've read his point of view on it. I'm inclined to think that a malach or many malach were sent into Sheol, and Yahowah can send a malach into Sheol, can release a malach from Sheol. That Yahowah sent malach into Sheol to release Yosha's soul, and it was
wouldn't that have to be the case because you couldn't get Hasatan out for the second time?
Right, and that
so there's got to be something like that.
Right, and met outside of Sheol by the set-apart spirit, and then was bathed in her light. Now there is a presentation of Yosha then in Shamayim in the seventh dimension, and he comes. He's had all of this rubbish of man, all this yeast that has been placed upon him, and he has spent time in the place of separation, and then he is judged and rendered Sadak, perfect right. And you have to, there are two ways to look at that. One is that, Yosha, still with all this yeast, still clinging to him, as if he hadn't paid the price for it in Sheol, now enters the presence of Yahowah, and Yahowah then surrounds Yosha with the garment of light and declares him perfect, for he, like Dode, observed the Torah and acted upon Yahowah's instructions. Or you can view all of that as as symbolism of that this experience is being presented to us as Yahowah's affirmation that this is how He will view us. That no matter how much crud we have on us, if we are Torah observant as was Yosha, and meet with him on the Moed Mikre and accept the terms and conditions of the covenant, then no matter how much crud has been associated with our soul, we're going to look perfect in Yahowah's eyes. And so I think this story is being told, and I don't know if it's in Zechariah or Malachi, in which of these books, but I think the story is being told from that perspective. But because I don't think Yahowah would allow in Shamayim the physical presence of so much corruption. I don't think it's allowed there.
No.
So I think that I think this that it's very possible that for example, those in Shamayim were given the vision of Yosha emerging from Sheol, having paid the price in Sheol, and before he was enveloped in the set-apart spirit, but taken out of Sheol by the Malach, and they're viewing this from the perspective of Shamayim, and Yahweh making this declaration and then enveloping him in the set-apart spirit before he approaches and enters Shamayim. I think that's a more likely scenario. But again, our understanding of how this specifically works, how Yosha could eat the Passover meal, celebrate Pesach, and still be the Pesach lamb, and we're given some marvelous insights, but to understand the exact nature of Sheol, we've used the metaphor of a black hole. That metaphor is reasonably accurate, but not totally. Just as we can't envision how time as a dimension intersects the three dimensions of height, depth, and width at a right angle, we still know that time is a dimension. We can't have no concept of envisioning a fifth or a sixth or a seventh dimension, because our perspective is as a three-dimensional construct. There is no way for God to explain from our current perspective everything that is needed to know that transpires in a fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh dimension. So how that story is manifest, all he can do is give us some insights. We don't have the capacity, really, to go beyond, I think, where we are. So there's just some places I think you throw up your hands and say, we're given enough to know this is how it works.
Yeah, but, that it does work.
It does work. And that it does work.
So let him worry about the details. That's way over my head.
Before we leave here tonight, I wanted to bring up one last thing about this word "as" that I've made certain connections with.
Okay.
Yahweh talks about Damascus as a place that increased her harlotry. Now I know that Paul was in Damascus, and I also know that the caliphs ran their little game out of Damascus too.
Right. Yeah. Paul went to Damascus immediately after he had this battle with Hasatan.
Yeah.
On the road. He was on the road to Damascus. He wasn't on the road. Like I want to tell you, the Mikre lead to camping out with Yahweh in Jerusalem. If you're not headed to Jerusalem, you're not headed to God. If you're headed to Damascus, you're headed away from God and to a place that is very much not God.
Right. And Craig, I have a question for you. You know a little bit about Western Semitic languages. Syriac, Aramaic. How close is it to Hebrew?
It's based on Hebrew.
Okay. Arabic. How close is it to Hebrew?
Same alphabet. It is essentially it is a corruption of Hebrew, but it's Arabic. Written Arabic is a direct derivative of this blending of Syriac and Aramaic that was essentially a derivation of Hebrew, and that became Arabic. That's why the Arabic alphabet, same number of letters, the letters have the same pronunciation, and that's why most of the words in the Quran are actually Hebrew, including Quran.
Yeah, so they grew out of the Hebrew mother tongue, yeah?
Right, in fact, Hebrew is the first alphabet. Yeah, the first alphabet is definitely Hebrew, unquestionably.
Yeah. Af in both Syriac, Aramaic, Nabatean Aramaic, and Arabic. They all mean the same thing. Yeah. It's like a viper. It's an asp, a viper.
An asp would be a poisonous snake. Even today in English. Yeah, and it's an angry term.
Everything I looked up said it was just vicious vow, I hate you, or is hatred, is poison, just hostility of the worst kind.
It's Pauline Christianity is Paul's letters are hateful and hostile to God.
Yeah.
The Quran is hateful and hostile to God. It is Hasatan wants to be above Allahu Akbar, above God, which makes him hateful and resentful to God. That's the concept of the term.
And Jesus Christo is no different.
No, it's Christo is
far
made,
above
Yahweh. That's correct. In Christianity, Jesus Christ is more important than Yahweh, and what the Christian doesn't know is the character and presentation of Jesus Christ is based upon Dionysus.
Mm-hmm. Well, why don't they know it? It's so clear once you read a little.
Correct. It's so obvious.
I mean,
yeah, and that Christians will write letters about how Paul was struggling against the Gnostics, when in fact Paul's letters are based on Gnosticism.
Gnostic.
Yeah, he was a Gnostic.
It's an argument there. All the books there.
His fight against Gnostics is just like his fight against the healing message of Yahuchanan and Shimon Kefesh. It's only his variation that was considered acceptable. Anybody who had any variation other than his was to be condemned. So Paul mixed Gnosticism and the Talmud together and his own mantra, and so he was opposed to pure Gnostics, while he was promoting a mixing together of Gnosticism and Talmudic Judaism all mixed together.
And he didn't just condemn them. He said, "May you be castrated." Do you know? In Torah that it says if a woman even reaches out her hands to a man's private part, because that is his. That's where family comes from, people. Hello.
Right. Yeah.
That she's encouraging iniquity, and it's a punishment. People don't understand. Yahweh would never ever send someone with that much za'af,
hate,
overwhelming, bubbling over hatred to promote
and no one with
his
equivocation.
message.
You if you're going to share Yahweh's message, you have to be resolute. You cannot be hypotheticals do not work. You can't equivocate. You can't. What's the book that we were just Urantia? You can't Urantia. You can't mix things together. You either take Yahweh as a consistent whole and accept his position and become in conflict with all positions which are contrary to his, or you can't be used by him.
No, it's the straight stick.
Yes.
Why would you want to hear the truth and then go back to a vomit lie? Why would
you come to know the Creator of the universe's personal presentation of who he is and what he's offering and what he accepts and rejects? Why would you then say, why don't I blend that with, because maybe, I could make it a better story if I blend it with some philosophy, if I blend it with a little bit of Paul, a little bit of Muhammad, a little bit of the Zohar. I'll mix some things in, and we can create a meal.
You can make Scientology.
Write your own. No. At some point, you say, wait a minute, the Creator of the universe has proven that he conveyed this message. Why would I want anything other than to accurately translate it and thoroughly understand it?
Well,
why would I want to add anything to it?
It's the most beautiful message. It is the most perfect message. Find the flaws in the message. Find where it's not fair. Show me where it's not fair.
I do want to go through the notes that you have about the Exodus and the time in the Israelites were slaved, including the time that Joseph was and Egypt. You've done a lot of work on it. It'd be interesting to pursue that. But
well, I haven't done a whole lot on Joseph, but I've done quite a lot on just the Exodus itself because I was looking for the time period. But you have to go back to these people that did do the research. I'm a researcher. I'm not the guy who comes up with all these ideas or something. I don't have any new things to do, but I'm a voracious reader, and I have an open mind. So when I see something and you say, "My God, that's proof of this and proof of that," and that's true, and you look at all the arguments against, and you say, "No, that's a stupid argument." You're just attacking the guy who's writing it, not the actual information. And you go from source to source to source to source. You wind up, it has to be these people who invaded Egypt after they went out. I used to be troubled, like, for why such urgency for these slaves to head out of Egypt. Well, obviously the pursuit of Pharaoh's army at some point, that's fine. And once they're destroyed and everything, but they run across these people, Amalekites, out there, and they have a fight with there, and you have Aaron and Hur holding up Moshe's arms, and they defeat them there, and then they incur several more later. But these people had to go somewhere. This was a huge army of people, a huge invasion of people. And then you find all the history books, or all the histories from everywhere, saying that these are the people who came into Egypt, and they laid it barren. And it was curious that everything that they destroyed was pretty much built by the Hebrews. They built up, they benefited, so he left it in the condition it would have been if they had never been there. So they benefited nothing from enslaving the Hebrews. They paid a heck of a price. But the story as laid out in Exodus is absolutely provable by a whole bunch of other sources.
Yeah, so long as you're dating it.
Well, make sure to copy me on your email because
it's going to take a while. I'll have to write it by hand, so it'll be a long.
No worries. There's some
I don't type well.
Egyptian papyrus that are in collections in Amsterdam that might be of interest, and I can send them to you.
Thing. Yeah, I've studied those for years and years and years and years.
Okay.
I said, well, gosh, all this stuff, I always knew that this stuff was true. I just didn't know how to put it all together.
It's amazing stuff.
This stuff was true.
Yeah, that's why I thought that David Roll's book, A Test of Time, is actually the name of it, A Test of Time, is really so beautifully presented in terms of the research he did relative to the timing and the evidence that exists. Now, clearly, David Roll does not know Yahowah, but he does some pretty decent research as it relates to these things, and you can form your own conclusions. The point I was going to make, though, is the only place we have to be careful is that while there is lots of things, like there's hieroglyphics that show Abraham and his family coming into Israel, and there's a ton of evidence of that exists of the agrarian reform that was conducted by Joseph. The words, the testimony of these egotistical pharaohs, or those that would lived in Assyria, the kings and that, their testimony is not trustworthy. When the Assyrian king admitted that he had Jerusalem surrounded, that he had captured all of the cities of the northern kingdom, and that he had Jerusalem encircled like a bird in a cage, and then suffered unmitigated loss. And it affirms what you read in the Torah. Okay, that's a good information, nice validation. But I never trust what the hieroglyphics have to say about these pharaohs. They were disingenuous.
Braggadocious.
So were the priests representing them.
Well, they're going to put the good spin on it.
They're going to put a real good.
To me, it's always
they're going to
these things can't happen in a vacuum. Somebody had to record the similarities of something going on there, and it's not to. The Torah doesn't need my help to prove it, but those are just interesting things. My gosh, it's like digging up this, that, and the other, and finding out, okay, well, that was on fire, that burned, something from the sky hit that.
It's also interesting. You look at the mega volcano that Santorini was a mega volcano at the same time, and when you look at the things that mega volcano would have caused in nearby the northern part of Egypt and Goshen, because it's right in the middle of the Aegean Sea, just a few hundred miles away, and what it would have done, and it's one of the greatest volcanic eruptions in human history. It wiped out the Minoan civilization.
Yeah, it wiped out there, and at the same time, all these cataclysmic events are taking place at the same time in the same region.
Right.
Amazing.
Yeah, same region. So, you see, Atlantis was where Santorini is today, and that volcano completely obliterated that city, but it also wiped out what was the most advanced civilization of the day. The Minoans wiped them out completely, and the timing of that seems to coincide with the beginning of the Exodus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you almost have to. Well, people have. You almost have to reconstruct the history because they count the same pharaohs again at another period. It's like they move Alexander around, and you go, wait, time out. You can't have this same thing here.
Yeah, I know. And there's so many people that say, that the Christians particularly, that the pharaoh was Ramses of the. And wasn't Ramses that they. In fact, one of the things that's interesting about the Torah proving that it was an alphabetic, they're using an alphabet, is that Ramses as a name is presented in the Torah. And so it was pronounceable 3,000 years before the Rosetta Stone made the hieroglyphics readable. And the Torah has it right. It proves that the Torah was a phonetic language and that you can pronounce it, and that there are vowels in addition to the consonants because it got Ramses correct. But all it says is that the city was Ramses, which means that the city was considered the son of the sun god. So it's not that was the name of the pharaoh. The pharaoh chose the name based upon for the same reason that the city that the Israelites were building chose that name. They weren't, but they're not the same. So it was not Ramses. And so many historical programs now are trying to, and Christian movies, and everything tries to make that point. But no, it was definitely, unequivocally, not Ramses.
And not only that, it doesn't match the archaeological artifacts that are coming out from the period.
No.
So it's absolutely impossible.
Right, and then they try to disprove the Torah's testimony because they say that the falling of the walls of Jericho does not time with the reign of Ramses.
And it's not supposed to.
And it's not supposed to.
That's why Yahweh wrote it that way, so you would know that.
It's not supposed to. I know. It's just painful.
I've got to do one more little research thing. There's a stone, the el-Ardish stone, and it has, apparently the thing I was reading, it says it has a pay and a gimel on it, and this goes way, way back in Egypt. So another thing that I have to send over to Dr. Jeff if I can ever get enough credible.
It's so obvious that Hebrew was the first alphabet. Yeah, first alphabet.
Absolutely.
Not the first writing system, first alphabet. And that there's no invention I just wish that people knew that the invention of an alphabetic writing system was the single most important invention in human history. Nothing comes anywhere close to the power of that. And then to recognize that language was Hebrew.
Yeah.
And then you say, and what was it used for?
Why would he start with one language and then tear it all up and then start with another language? Of course it was Hebrew. Yeah, Yahweh always spoke Hebrew.
Right. What was it used for?
Yeah.
And what do the names therefore mean? What can you learn from it? And what are the uniquenesses of that language, of verbs that are liberated in time?
What language can match it? Nothing.
Right. Nothing.
No.
And I never loved language that much, but it impressed me. I mean, the more I studied,
I know.
I went, wow.
Wow. Stunning language. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. We look forward to being with you all next week, and we'll jump right into chapter 8 of Observations.
All right, so.
All right. Thank you, Lisa.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you.
Shabbat shalom.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right. Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.